Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another podcast. Welcome, Dr. Omer Atilla Ergi.
Hello, Dr. Zuleyha. How are you?
Good, thank you. And yourself?
Good. Good to be here.
Yes. We have another interesting topic, looking at evidence for afterlife. I guess, in today's world, or even before, everyone wonders, is there really life after death? It's something we're all curious about, considering we do want to live eternally. Is there evidence for afterlife? Can we even prove that there is evidence for afterlife?
Yes, it is a big topic, isn't it?
It is.
Because it concerns humanity. It's very important for us. And we are different from the rest of the creation on earth, because animals do not have that self-awareness. They don't understand the concept of life or death. They are here just to survive, continue their existence. But with human beings, as you know, we have this unique quality. We're not just made up of, a heap of molecules. There's this side to us, spiritual side, intellectual side. So we do wonder, is it going to all end? Is it going to continue? So in regards to, is there evidence for life after death? There are numerous evidences for life after death, and we can categorize them. There are scriptural evidence, there are theological evidence, there are philosophical evidence, and there is even some scientific evidence, although it is inconclusive, but there is scientific evidence as well. Maybe we can go through them one by one.
So 4 categories there. Let's start with the first one, scriptural evidence, I think you mentioned first.
Yes.
All right, what are the scriptural evidence?
The scriptural evidence is, we know that there is a consensus amongst, most of the world religions, world faiths, and if we look at their scriptures, we see that life after death is always emphasized. Even if we take the 2 of the biggest monotheistic religions on earth, which is Christianity and Islam, their population on earth is 4.5 billion. So more than the half of the world's population believe that there is life after death. That's
something, isn't it? That's a huge portion of people who are believing that there is life after death.
So there's a consensus there anyway. But if we look at the other religions, so there's always an implication of life after death. Life is not just about this materialistic world. And when we look at the scriptural evidence, like, for example, if we look at it from a Quranic perspective, 23% of the Quran is based on life after death. That's big, percentage. It's almost 1/4 of the Quran. It focuses on life after death. And we have all the testimonies of, thousands of prophets. Some of them we know by name because the Quran mentions them, but Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, the last messenger, he says that in a hadith that there has been 124,000 prophets sent to this world. And when you think about this, 124,000 is a big number. And all of these people, from a prophetic perspective, we know that they never lied in their lives. They are. This is one of their qualities, which they are sidq. They always tell the truth, and they are reliable people. And an analogy comes to my mind. For example, if I were to say to a person that someone is sitting in a cafe, and I walk up to that person and I say to this person, "Your house is on fire." He doesn't know who I am. He might say, could be a prank or something like that. But 2 minutes later, if someone else comes running, and it's someone that he knows, trust, and he says, "Your house is on fire," he'll jump up. If the third person comes, he'll be running to his house because it's been confirmed by 3 people. Now, even in, court of law, when there's a trial or something like that, 12 people decide whether someone is guilty or not. 12 people,
in the jury,
based on evidence. Now think about 124,000 people who never lied in their life, and they all say the same thing: there is life after death.
So we're not talking about any old person. These are prophets, chosen people that are saying it. The weighting of what they say is not like someone off the street.
Exactly. And of course, after the prophets, you have, according to some reports, 124 million scholars And they all confirm the same thing as well.
And these are knowledgeable, wise people that are saying it again. That's a very important point.
Yeah, so there's a very powerful consensus there. We have no doubt about that. So that strengthens our argument in regards to evidence for life after death. And another thing that we can test, like for example, if the Quran says, as I said, 1/4 of the Quran says there's life after death, and God himself promises that there will be life after death, the day of judgment, the day of resurrection, there is eternal life, and this is all in the Quran as well, and the previous scriptures. So if someone believes in God, and existence of God, and the reliability, truthfulness of the Quran indicates that there is no doubt about life after death. So there is scriptural evidence there. We have no, issue with that.
Before you move on to the next one, so with this scriptural evidence, maybe it's a side note, but we're talking like the Quran was revealed to in a context where people actually didn't believe in life after death. Do you think that, how did that play out, I suppose?
Yeah, that's another good point there too, because they were even mocking the Prophet. ﷺ. As you know, in Surah Yasin, there's a verse. Someone walks up to him, one of the idol worshippers, and he has this bone in his hand, rotting bone. I think it was a chin bone of a camel or something like that, and he's pressing on it too. It's going to dust, and he's in a sarcastic way. Maybe he's saying, he's going to give life to these dead bones, and we see this theological argument in the Quran.
So we're going to theological as well now?
Yeah, because the Quran doesn't say, yes, they are going to be given life. The Quran uses logic there, ration there, and the Quran says, whoever created them in the first place, he will give them life again. And it's an interesting thing, the argument that the Quran puts forward. And I always use this example, again, analogies are very powerful.
Very.
And I say, if you're at a gathering and someone walks in with a bag of, electronic equipment, huge bag, and he empties it in front of us, we're all watching it, all little tiny components, electrical components, and before our very eyes, he puts it together and turns it into a, magnificent computer, working computer, amazing computer. And then he pulls it apart again. Can anyone in the room say, this guy cannot put it together again? We've seen him put it together in the first place with our own eyes. Now, if we take that analogy, have a look at human body, like our bodies are made up of, cells, flesh, blood, bones, or tissues, all of these things. But how do they form? We should think about it, mainly through sustenance, water, air, all of these things. But where do all of these things come from? We should think about it. We may have, in our bodies, let us say, nuts from Brazil, bananas from Venezuela, mangoes from Queensland, all different parts of the world. All of these little things come together and turn into flesh. So somebody is building these magnificent mechanisms, biological mechanisms, in front of our eyes. We don't see the builder, but it's being built. We're not doing it ourselves. So when the time comes and it's all pulled apart, it would be illogical to claim that whoever is making this, putting it together, cannot put it together again.
That's true, because absolutely, like when you think about it, it's an amazing, we're an amazing product, if I put it that way, especially compared to a computer. Like even a computer, you don't look at it and think, oh, it happened itself. I guess that's kind of going into God's existence and creation. But as you said, once they've built it once, you would never think, oh, they can't do it again, because they've got the skills, they've got the knowledge, the power, and the evidence is there that they've done it. Yes. So the Quran uses that argument that if Allah did this once, He can do it again.
Yes. So there is a very powerful argument in the Quran. It is a theological argument.
Yeah.
That's why I mentioned that there is very powerful theological arguments for the existence of life after death. And another thing that comes to my mind is this. We believe that God is the all-merciful, all-compassionate. And He has various other names, attributes as well. That's the definition of God in Islam, anyway, Islamic theology. And the Quran proves this as well. Now, I'm thinking, if he is all compassionate, all merciful, imagine, he gives you life, he gives you intellect, free will, consciousness, and then allows you to take some pleasure out of this life, because it's not full pleasure. When you think about it, human beings, on average, if you lived about 75 years, 25 years of that you slept.
True.
It's gone. 25. 1/3 of your life goes to sleep. And when you look at the rest, when you get older, there are certain things, quality of life drops anyway.
Yeah.
You don't get pleasure out of your life. Take another 10, 15 years off. When you're a child, you don't even remember about life. And then you have education, work, illnesses, all these responsibilities. So how much pleasure did you take out of life? About 6 months, they say. According to statistics, that's all.
When you take everything out.
Everything out about it. So is it really worth it, this word? No. So would that be really, when you think about it, a compassionate God, a merciful God, allows you to take about 6 months of pleasure from this life and then takes your life away, and then you never exist again. You're gone. Never to exist again. This doesn't sound like a compassionate God to me, merciful God to me, isn't it?
No, exactly. It's like, you take a child to a playground, or you give them an experience, some nice sweet, and then you go, you're not going to taste this again. It's actually quite painful when you think about it.
It is, isn't it? It's like more like you're making them suffer.
Yes.
Life would turn into a suffering, that's all.
That's
because
right.
They say, anticipation of death is more scary than death itself, knowing that you're going to die. And if you have that, mentality that death is completely the end, you will never exist, you cannot get a taste out of life, not even as much as a sparrow, a bird, because they don't have that understanding. And
so it would be tormenting. So even when even if you're having that good experience, so you're with family and you're loving it, but at the back of your mind you may always be thinking, this is going to end.
Yes.
There'll be a time when I will not see them. And so
Scary.
even those moments you were saying, 6 months of joy that you may have are not really joyful, because you're conscious that if you don't believe in afterlife, you're conscious that this is never going to happen at one point.
That's a very good point, because even when you're having that pleasure, in the back of your mind, you are thinking about these things. And I always use this very humorous analogy. I say, unlike the animals, human beings cannot stop thinking. And I say, if someone wanted to stop thinking, they will be thinking about not thinking.
Yes.
So they will still be thinking. So it's a very interesting thing. And I remember one scholar once said, thinking is like a stone in your shoe. It always bothers you when you walk.
It's always there.
Yeah, it's always there. You cannot
you.
take it out and throw it, because you got that brain in there, you'll die. So you, by default, you keep on thinking. So we think about these things. And
that affects our lifestyle, affects our mood, emotions, everything.
Of course, but everything changes when we accept there's life after death. That brings hope to us. Hope is the most important thing, and religion gives you hope. I think this is the most important part of it. I'll explain to you one very interesting anecdote which I experienced some years ago. My wife and I was at this bus stop, and there was 2 elderly ladies there. They were in their late 80s, easy, approaching 90. One of them was weeping, crying. And I felt bad, we walked up to them and we said, why is she crying, to the other lady? And she said, she's afraid of death. And then I start talking to this elderly lady, and she listened, and her eyes changed. There was brightness on her. I said, this is not all about, life is not all about this. I said, you may be aging now, we're all going to die. I said, but there is a life after death. I said, and there you will be young again, and you will live for eternity. She became happy, actually. She felt good. You
could see it, changing her facial expression, her body. Everything.
Yes, so hope is like that. So religion gives you hope, but the evidence is there as well.
It's not false hope, right?
It's not false hope, because when you think about God Almighty, and you look at his names and attributes, and this is a very interesting thing, all of these names and attributes are infinite and eternal. Like, for example, the sustainer. Yeah. Now, it is an infinite and eternal attribute. Now, if there was no life after death, all living beings died and we all disappeared, never to exist again, who is going to benefit from that infinite names, infinite attributes? So they require all of those attributes, infinite attributes and names, they require infinite beneficiaries.
That's true. Like even the name Al-Khaliq, say the creator, if everything became nothing at one point, that name wouldn't be manifesting after a certain period of time, and that goes against.
So it should be continuous, so that those names can continue to reflect. Of course, there's another theological argument, or I can say philosophical argument, which I use a lot as well, and it's a good, powerful argument. And I say, because we have never seen the life after, we haven't been there, we haven't seen it, because some people say, they make fun of it. They say, have you ever seen anyone go and come back? They use arguments like that. The thing is, time runs in a linear motion, style, from A to B, as we talked about it before with you. So you don't go back.
Don't go back, you go.
Yeah, and when you think about it, has anyone gone back into their mother's womb? No, there's no such a thing. It flows one way. So when we go to life after that, obviously you're not going to come back to this world. But the thing is this, when you think about, let us say, a baby in the mother's womb, and just assume, hypothetically, we give this baby some intellect to understand. The brain of a 40-year-old, let us say. And somehow we communicate with this baby, and we say to this baby, look, this is not the world that you're in now. You're only going to be there for about 9 months. It's temporary. And you will come out of this world into a much, much, much bigger world, where there are, aeroplanes, sun, stars, mountains, rivers. You'll be walking, running, smiling, seeing, all of these things. It will be very difficult for that baby to understand that, because all the baby seeing is that dark womb. But if the baby had enough intellect, maybe rationally it can use, or he or she can use her reason and say that, there are certain things which were given to me, they are of no use to me in here. I wonder why they were given to me. Like, why do I have eyes when it's all dark? I can't see nothing. Why do I have legs? There's nowhere to walk around. Why do I have a mouth when I'm being fed by, my umbilical cord? And it might come to the conclusion by inference, there must be another place that I will be sent to, and there I will be able to use all these tools, all these limbs and tools, organs. Now, from that, mentality, or from that argument, we can say, we can use the same thing for us. In this world, whatever God has given to us, there is a corresponding item. There's no doubt about that. We have eyes, there's light. We have ears, there's sound. We have nose, there's scent. We have tongues, there's taste.
Yeah. So some will say we're using everything in this life.
Everything that given to us, their corresponding item has been created as well. But there is certain things that only human beings have. We don't see, their corresponding items here in this world. Like, none of us wants to die. None of us wants to get old. Yeah, we don't want to get sick. We don't want to be poor.
Okay.
Do these things exist here? Like.
Oh, right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Actually, on that point, I heard someone who turned 40 and they started crying.
Yeah.
And this goes back to what you're saying. No one wants to get old, because when they get old, they're not going to be as able, or they know that it's coming towards death. So you're saying that there are some desires or wants within us that have been put in there.
Yes. They're there, but where is the corresponding thing?
It's not. Yeah.
Is there, eternal life here? No. Is there where you can always be young? No. So why were these emotions, these desires given to us? And one scholar, very famous scholar, he is a student of Bediüzzaman Said Nursi. His name is Mehmet Kırkıncı. I love this analogy he uses. He says, if he did not wanted to give, he would not have given the feeling of want. So since God gave us this desire, this feeling for eternity, therefore he will create eternity as well. So he uses this argument, and I think it's quite a valid argument as well.
It is, especially I think when you started with the womb and the baby, that's very powerful, because like you said, there are things in there, in that body, in that fetus that it will never use in that 9 months.
Yes.
But it does. We see that it does, and we have been using those, like our legs and our hands, and speaking.
Yeah.
So and therefore, going on from that, there are things that we want which are not going to be satisfied on this earth.
Exactly.
And therefore, they're going to be used somewhere else.
We know by that babies, anatomy, the tools it's been given, that it's been prepared for another world. So when we look at ourselves, we are being prepared for another world, much bigger than this. So there is no doubt, from my perspective, that there is life after death. As I said at the beginning, there's some scientific evidence too, although, as I said, it is inconclusive, but there is some very serious scientists involved in this, NDEs, near-death experiences. And in fact, some of them are, brain surgeons, neuroscientists, and they have some evidence as well indicating that people, who actually die on the operating table. I remember reading this research about this professor. He says that he was a brain surgeon. He says that the brain activity actually stopped. There was no blood flow, but the patient was conscious.
Really?
Later on came to himself, and he described everything in the operating theater. Where there was this item, and claimed that, it's sort of an out-of-body experience, and describe everything in the room. And there are many examples of this, and they say, look, this is not possible for them. Others argue, there are other scientists go against this, they're more materialistic views, and they say, it could be some form of hypoxia, cerebrum hypoxia, where there's not enough oxygen going to brain, and they start seeing things, because of imagining things. But from an Islamic perspective, when you think about the soul, the spirit, yes, we see that, the body stopped functioning, but the full soul doesn't die. Maybe the person did not die, of course. If the person died, the spirit soul would have been removed, and the patient would not come back. But maybe at that stage, the soul is still, moving around, shining out of the body.
Or could it be that it temporarily, like it's because when you're dreaming, the spirit leaves the body, but it's still connected to the body.
Yes, exactly.
So this could be where it's connected to the body, because as you said, when you die, the connection just cuts. So it's connected, but it came out of the body. It was able to see things.
Yes.
And then, but it didn't die, so back into the body. Could that be?
I think so. Look, we cannot just ignore metaphysics. It's a reality. There's something there. There's something beyond matter. There's no doubt about that. And according to Bediüzzaman Said Nursi, he says, when we sleep, because sleep is the younger brother of death. So that's the prophetic saying anyway. He says that the soul doesn't leave the body entirely, according to Bediüzzaman. If it did, the body would die. He says it's like the power of the body. The soul powers the body. But he says it shines out of the body like light would shine out from a torch when you switch it on. So it can stretch, he says, to to the past and the future. So its circle is quite large. So I think this is what happens.
He uses the torch
there.
analogy. Okay.
He uses the torch analogy.
And because it's metaphysical, it's not bound by matter like the physical body, and that's why I guess some people, when they dream, they might see things in the future. They say, "Oh, I saw that in my dream." It could be that can explain it, right? Because I can see the past and the future.
Yeah,
it's
exactly. And with near-death experiences, there's a lot of recorded things, by scientists as well. They, patients say, I saw some of my dead relatives. They claim they saw something like a light. They explain many different things. They say that I saw the whole operating theater, as I said before. They even explained, sometimes they put specific items in there just to test. And they describe them as well, So it's quite unique, I think. So, look, we have a lot of evidence for life after death. But the program will be too long if I try to explain everything here. But very powerful evidences we have here.
Indeed. So we covered the scriptural, the philosophical, theological, and scientific evidence for the existence of life after death. Thank you for sharing that. It was very insightful.
Thank you.
And see you next time. Assalamu alaikum.